7. Signs you hold the strongest shadow vibration even demons respect. Let me ask you something most people are too afraid to even whisper to themselves. What if your darkness isn't something to fix, but something to understand? What if the parts of you you've tried to bury, suppress, or cleanse through light and love are actually ancient forces waiting to be activated? What if I told you right now that holding the strongest shadow vibration isn't a curse, but a rare spiritual authority, one so potent that even demons, entities, and unseen forces do not dare cross its boundary? That's not fantasy, that's not drama. That's a truth that the mystics, the sages, and the most feared spiritual warriors have known for centuries. And I'm here to tell you, if you're watching this, there's a reason. You might be one of them. We've all been told that light is the goal, that healing is about becoming pure, soft, angelic. But real power, true spiritual power, requires integration. It requires you to face the dark within you and not run. It demands that you stop trying to kill your shadow and instead learn to command it. Because here's something no one tells you on those glossy spiritual Instagram pages. Demons don't fear the light. They respect the shadow. Why? Because the shadow is honest. It doesn't lie. It doesn't pretend. It doesn't beg for approval. The shadow is the part of you that remembers who you were before society tamed you, before trauma bent you, before fear made you small. And when you've done enough inner work, when you've sat with your own rage, betrayal, lust, shame, grief, and not judged it, but understood it, you begin to emit a frequency that is undeniable. It's not loud, it doesn't seek attention, it's just there, heavy, grounded, silent, and entities, both people and spirits, can feel it. They recognize you as someone who has walked through hell and didn't just survive, but built a throne there. That's shadow vibration. And the strongest kind? It's the kind that doesn't need to fight. It just is.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Now I'm going to walk you through 7 signs that you hold this vibration. But this isn't a checklist. This is a mirror. The deeper you go into each sign, the more you'll see yourself. But also, the more you'll realize what you survived was never random. It was training, initiation, a preparation to carry something the world isn't ready to name. The first sign is presence so intense it makes people uncomfortable without you saying a word. Have you ever noticed that some people flinch around you, or they get defensive even when you're calm? It's not because you're aggressive, it's because your energy exposes them. You carry a vibration that doesn't allow masks, and that's terrifying to those who live behind one. Your silence feels like confrontation. Your stillness feels like a mirror. And most people are not ready to see what they've been hiding from. You don't need to speak truth, you are truth. And truth, in a world built on denial, is the most dangerous vibration there is. The second sign is that you're a magnet for the broken, the cursed, and the powerful. You attract intensity. People either want to confess everything to you, or they avoid you entirely. There's no middle ground. That's because your field is an amplifier. Whatever someone brings near you, whether it's grief, darkness, or brilliance, gets magnified. You don't just hold space, you expand it. And that's why demons don't try to possess you. They know your frequency would fry them. You're not an open door, you're a furnace, and only those who are ready for transformation can survive your heat. The third sign is a history of suffering that doesn't make sense until now. You've lived through things people wouldn't survive, and you didn't just survive them. You understood them, you saw the patterns, you decoded the pain. You didn't spiritually bypass your trauma, you walked into its heart and made it speak. That kind of soul does not come from comfort. It comes from war. And the reason demons respect you is because they know you've already met them. Not in some ritual, not in some haunted house, but in your own mind, in your own bloodline, in your own childhood. And you didn't flinch. That's mastery, that alchemy, that's the mark of someone who's not afraid of the dark, because they are the dark, integrated, sacred, awake. The fourth sign is that you've been misunderstood your whole life. People projected onto you, called you intense, cold, too much, too deep, too serious. You were never just one of the crowd. You walked into a room and the atmosphere changed, not because you were trying to dominate, but because your frequency rearranged the space. That's not ego, that's resonance. And those who are unconscious can't process it, so they label it. But those who are sensitive, they feel safe with you, not because you're soft, but because you're real. And realness, in a world of masks, is the most sacred gift you can offer. And the question I want to ask you now is this. Have you ever wondered why your path has been so lonely? Why you've had to walk through experiences that broke others but only sharpened you? What if that loneliness was never punishment, but protection? What if you were being kept away from the noise so you could forge something the world would one day need? Something unshakable, something unbreakable, something even darkness itself would have to bow to. That's the path of the shadow holder, the demon respected, the ones who didn't run from the abyss but made it their temple. If you're still listening, you're not here by accident. You've been chosen, not by some external force, but by your own soul. And the more you remember who you are, the more the outer world will begin to shift, not because you're forcing it, but because reality has no choice but to rearrange around someone who has remembered their true resonance. Reality just is. Now the next signs will go even deeper, into realms most fear to touch. We'll talk about spiritual authority, frequency weapons, and the silent codes demons recognize in your energy field. But ask yourself this first. Are you ready to fully accept the power you've spent your life trying to suppress? The demon's mirror, why darkness bows to the shadow you carry. There's something most people will never understand about spiritual power, and it's this. Real power doesn't scream, it doesn't boast, it doesn't seek to convince, it simply is. It radiates from the bones, it echoes in silence, and it causes even the most arrogant forces of darkness to pause before stepping too close. That's the kind of shadow vibration we're talking about, the kind that doesn't need to fight, because its presence alone ends the battle before it begins. You don't chase demons away with sage and chanting when you carry this frequency. They leave because they know what you are. You're not prey, you're the reckoning. The fifth sign that you carry this vibration is that you've never fully fit into either world, the light or the dark. You've always felt like an anomaly, You couldn't fully align with the love and light crowd because something in you knew that healing isn't always pretty. It's raw, bloody, transformative. And you couldn't align with darkness either because you weren't here to indulge it. You were here to understand it, contain it, and transmute it. You are the bridge between realms. You don't belong to one side. You hold both. With balance most can't begin to comprehend. That's why demons respect you. They know you've tasted power on both ends and refuse to be consumed by either. That refusal is your sovereignty. This is not about being morally perfect or spiritually enlightened in the conventional way. This is about spiritual authority. And authority isn't something you get from books, titles, or followers. Authority is earned in the unseen. It's carved into your aura by the experiences no one saw you survive. It's built in the moments you faced your inner monsters and didn't collapse. When you chose stillness over reaction. When you heard the seductive whispers of your old patterns and still walked away. Every time you chose truth, your truth, over illusion, a piece of your crown returned to you. That's the sixth sign. You've earned invisible crowns in invisible wars, and the spirits know it. When someone with this vibration walks into a room, even if they're silent, the energy shifts. People feel it in their gut. Some will admire you without knowing why. Others will hate you, also without knowing why, because your presence disrupts illusion. It challenges the unresolved. It brings unconsciousness to the surface. And that's the real spiritual work, isn't it? Not to make people feel good all the time, but to make them see. You don't always bring comfort. Sometimes you bring clarity. And clarity often feels like chaos to those still clinging to their masks. Have you ever had someone tell you, "I don't know what it is about you, but you scare me a little"? Or maybe they say, "You're intense," even when you're just being honest. That's not a flaw, that's a frequency. It's your shadow vibrating at full spectrum. It's the part of you that doesn't flinch when someone reveals their darkness. It's the part of you that doesn't need to fix, save, or judge. That neutrality is terrifying to entities and people who feed on drama, division, and emotional chaos. You're not programmable. You don't respond to bait. You just see. And that seeing makes the unseen panic, because now it's exposed. And here's something even deeper. Demons don't just fear you, some of them serve you. That's the mystery most won't understand. When you become this integrated, your field doesn't just repel darkness, it commands it. You become a general in the unseen. Your words carry weight in the astral. Your presence becomes a boundary. Your dreams turn into battlegrounds where you don't run, you lead. And the reason you can lead is because you've mastered yourself. You've held your rage without letting it control you. You've cried without drowning. You've faced temptation and chosen patience. That kind of self-mastery creates a gravitational field that realigns energy around you. You realize what that means. You're not just a person anymore. You're a force. And when you walk in alignment with your shadow and your light, there is no entity that can manipulate you. They may try, but they'll fail, because you've seen it all before. In fact, you've been it all before. That's the seventh sign you remember. Maybe not in words, maybe not in visions, but in your body, in your knowing. You carry ancient codes. You've walked this earth in other forms, other times, and you didn't come back to play small. you came back to anchor something sacred, something unshakable. So let me ask you now, do you still think your darkness makes you broken? Or are you starting to see that it was always your initiation? That what broke you was actually building you? That what isolated you was protecting your frequency until you were strong enough to wield it without collapsing? Can you feel it rising now? The part of you that never needed fixing, only permission. You don't need to be saved, you need to remember. And when you do, the world around you will begin to reflect your truth. Not perfectly, not instantly, but undeniably. The silent authority, how your energy commands respect in the spirit realm. There's a level of spiritual maturity most will never reach, not because they can't, but because they won't. It's the level where you stop trying to be saved, healed, or even understood, and you begin to own the totality of your being, your light, your shadow, your silence, your fire. It's the level where you realize that the battle was never about defeating evil, it was about embodying power without corruption. And when you reach that point, something ancient in the fabric of reality begins to respond to you. Not with applause, not with comfort, but with recognition. The realm of spirit knows who you are, even if you've spent your whole life forgetting. When you hold the strongest shadow vibration, your life becomes a paradox. You are the calm in the storm and the storm itself. You are the healer and the wound. You are the question and the answer, all at once. And because of this, your presence becomes a teacher, not in the traditional sense, but in a deeper, more primal way. You walk into a space and the energy rearranges itself, not because you're trying to control anything, but because you can't be controlled. That's real authority. That's the kind of power that doesn't seek to dominate, but naturally governs, not by force, but by frequency. You've probably noticed it already. People come to you for guidance, even when you haven't offered it. Strangers tell you their secrets. Children and animals feel safe around you. People either trust you instantly or resist you completely. That's not a coincidence. That's your energy field doing the work for you. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to say the right words. Your vibration is the message. And that message says, I have faced my demons and now they serve me. That's a bold statement, isn't it? But I want you to really think about it. The parts of you once feared, your rage, your shame, your hunger, your pain, are no longer your enemies. You're your tools, your allies. When integrated, they become refined instruments of clarity, protection, and discernment. Rage becomes righteous fire. Shame becomes humility. Hunger becomes purpose. Pain becomes depth. You no longer resist these forces, you direct them. You don't suppress your inner darkness. You sit it at your table and say, I see you. Now serve something greater. And that's the secret most people miss. The goal isn't to kill the shadow. The goal is to govern it. That's what makes you dangerous in the best way. Your inner world is not a war zone anymore. It's a kingdom. And in that kingdom, you are not a tyrant. You are a sovereign. You don't command with fear. You command with presence. And everything, even the unseen, responds to it. In the spirit realm, This kind of authority is rare, not because it's inaccessible, but because it requires you to die many times before you can hold it. You have to die to your illusions, your pride, your victimhood, your craving to be liked. You have to watch versions of yourself fall apart again and again until only the truth remains. And that truth? It can't be taught. It can only be realized. It's something you become through the fire of experience, and once you carry it, the spiritual world shifts around you. Entities recognize it, light beings respect it, dark beings avoid it, or in some cases align with it, because even they know you are not to be interfered with. Have you ever had dreams where you were leading others even though you didn't understand why? Have you ever felt like you were being watched, not by something malevolent, but something ancient, like it was waiting for you to remember? That's not imagination. That's memory. Your soul remembers the throne you once sat on. And it's not a throne of ego. It's not about being above others. It's about being responsible for what few are willing to face. You came here not to escape darkness, but to rule over it, not to destroy it, but to redeem it by being a living example of what integration looks like. And that's where the journey gets even more sacred, because once you reach that level, it's no longer just about you. Your presence becomes medicine, sometimes bitter, sometimes sweet, but always real. You begin to affect others without trying. Your shadow, fully integrated, becomes a field of liberation. You walk through rooms and people feel something shift, not because you're preaching, but because you're embodied. You've become what most people are too afraid to even admit they desire. Someone whole, someone sovereign, someone unshakable. So let me ask you, one final time in this chapter of the journey, what would your life look like if you stopped running from your darkness and started governing it? What would change if you stopped trying to prove your goodness and instead allowed your wholeness to speak for itself? Are you ready to stop dimming your shadow so others can stay comfortable in their illusions? Because in the final part of this journey, we will go deeper than ever before. We'll explore the ancient contracts you've made with the unseen, the karmic codes embedded in your bloodline, and the reason you were chosen to carry a frequency so potent that even demons offer you space. This is not mythology. This is your remembrance, and it's time to take your place. The unseen throne. Why you were born to govern darkness, not escape it. There is a throne that no one talks about. It is not made of gold or marble. It doesn't sit in a temple or palace. It exists in the unseen, within you. And it's not a place of ego or superiority. It's a sacred seat of command, forged through suffering, awareness, and the radical act of integration. Most people spend their entire lives running from the very energy you were born to master. They pray away the darkness. They avoid their triggers. They label shadow as bad and anything uncomfortable as low vibrational. But you, if you've made it this far, you know better. You know that the throne doesn't appear in the light. It appears when you've walked through the deepest corridors of your own psyche and refuse to abandon yourself. That's when the throne emerges. That's when your crown returns. That's when the spiritual realm bows, not to your personality, but to your alignment. You were born to govern darkness, not escape it. You were born to hold the vibration that says, I have met the underworld, and it no longer owns me. That's not just survival, that's kingship, that's spiritual rulership. Because here's the deepest truth: darkness isn't evil, it's raw, it's unrefined, it's the compost of the soul. And when you stop fearing it, when you stop judging it, you become its alchemist, its guide, its sovereign. You become the one who can walk into hell and not be consumed, because you carry the blueprint of heaven in your bones. And the reason demons respect you? It's not because you fight harder, it's because you don't react. You see, you feel, you know. And in the spirit world, that knowing is everything. There are beings in the unseen that thrive on fear, on chaos, on confusion. But when they come upon a soul who has faced the very energies they feed on and transmuted them, those beings have no power. You become what some call unpossessable. Not because you're armored, but because you're transparent. You've already brought your darkness into the light. There's nothing left to hide. And in the world of spirits, transparency is power. You might have noticed throughout your life that you've been guided away from things other people chase: status, validation, surface-level success. That wasn't failure, that was initiation. You were being stripped of distractions so you could remember your deeper contract. And that contract wasn't about being liked. It wasn't about being safe. It was about being true. You didn't come here to fit in. You came here to anchor a vibration that this world has nearly forgotten, a vibration that says you can be whole, messy, powerful, and still sacred. This is the calling of the shadow holder, to walk through life not as a savior, but as a mirror, to carry a field so clear that others begin to see themselves, not their illusions, but their essence. And yes, some will hate you for it, some will project, some will disappear, but the ones who are ready, they will awaken in your presence, not because you tried to change them, but because you allowed them to see an example of what's possible when someone stops running from their own soul. So now, I'll ask you one final question. Not as a guru, not as a teacher, but as someone who has walked the same path of fire, silence, and remembrance. What would happen, really happen, if you stopped fearing your shadow and started leading with it? What would your life look like if you let your pain become your power, your past become your platform, and your presence become prophecy? You are not broken, you are not too much, you are not too dark. You are prepared, and the moment you stop waiting for permission to be all of yourself, the unseen throne will rise beneath you, and you will sit on it not to rule others, but to finally rule yourself. And when that happens, even demons will nod in respect, because they'll know you came home. You remembered. You became what you were always meant to be. And now the world will feel your frequency.